Good morning, Lake Wales. I'm Catherine Price, Wicked Little Lady #1.
Hi, I'm Juanita Zwarchuk, and I'm another wicked little lady. Good to be here.
And I'm Charlene Bennett, also wicked. I think it's interesting to observe that the word wicked is a very common Old Testament word. It was used by God a lot and applied to many of the people in the Bible in various places. And I can't help but make that connection with the fact that Hillegoss used that word to describe us.
Well, we actually had, let's first of all, I think we need to commend you and Juanita particularly. She got her glamour shot on the Ledger today in an article about our mayor, Jack Hillegoss, and him calling it. It's about him calling us wicked, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I figured when your mayor labels you wicked from his pulpit, there's only one sensible thing to do, and that's to call him out on it, expose his bad behavior, and then consider the source and give it the weight that I think it deserves, which is none in my life right now.
Well, former state rep from Georgia, John Lewis, would call it good trouble.
Yeah.
And so we're definitely getting in some good trouble here, the three of us, little ladies. And we've had quite a few other names that we've been called. We've been called wicked. We've been called evil. We've been called liars. We've been called agitators. What are there other words that have been used? Rebel. Danny Kruger says that all we're interested in is the revolution. Yes.
Yeah. Revolutionaries.
We're revolutionaries too. Oh my God. I think I need to drink to that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, and we've also, there's also sort of the subtext that we're not good Christians, I guess, and I take a little issue with that because I was baptized when I was 6, and I've been getting in good trouble as a Christian for a long time.
Well, I was brought up evangelical Christian, and I haven't been one for many, many years. Being I'm someone whose God is the universe, but I'm the same person I was as before, and I'm just as good and probably better than I was because now I'm good by choice rather than because I've been ordered to do so by a God.
Yeah. Well, people might be surprised to know that I went to Catholic school all the way up to 10th grade.
That's what Catholics do.
And the only thing there was several things I got to, but in relation to what's happening right now and my role right now was we were taught to stick up for what you think is right. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Should be a separation between church and state because, if there's a religious basis for your authority, then it's very easy to tell people that they're wrong because they're on the wrong side of God, not just because what they're doing is wrong. And that gives the mayor, who is also a pastor, an extra advantage among his congregants that, other people running for office don't have behind them. And it's an unfair advantage. So,
right. As we've seen in the last week or two, when we've been receiving these flyers with Grady Judd, our sheriff of the county, with his arms slung over Danny Kruger. And actually, through one of our local reporters, I asked him if he would ask Grady Judd if he had endorsed these candidates. Of course, and apparently he said he had not endorsed them, but he didn't mind what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, that is an endorsement. But I think that some of that's coming out of the big developer kind of, mentality that they're protecting the big developers. And I think a lot of what we're seeing right now in our city commission is sort of a ramrodding of things that will make it easier for big development in our community.
Yes, and we know that we have basically a voting block of primarily 4 people, all of whom are either in Jack Hillegoss's church as members, or they are pastors in their own right, or otherwise religiously connected. And so I think that was well exemplified in the Ledger article. And again, I think it's probably time to say, with that election coming up, that it's so important to break up that voting block so that we can get a more nuanced approach to development in this city.
Well, and I want to also call out Richard, local attorney Richard McKinley, and thank him for standing up for people in the community that are not Christian of the same, denomination or the same persuasion. Also, people of other religious persuasions, or people that choose not to have a religious persuasion in our community, because they're all part of our community. And I am a Quaker, or we call ourselves a Religious Society of Friends. And our longstanding statement is, there is that of God in all people. And our job as a Christian or as a spiritual person is to care for all people equally. Yes. And be concerned about all people's well-being, and to listen to all people, because we believe that each person has some truth. I don't feel that I have some special, monopoly.
And to treat everybody equally, because, there are plenty of religions, particularly the evangelical one, that does not want to treat LGBTQ folks the same. And they have a variety of ways of not allowing equality in one way or another. And equality is just a very important thing for us.
Well, and I think in this environment of heightened interest in religion and Christianity as a political force, it's important for people that are consider themselves religious or Christian to speak up and say, not all of us think the same way. And we got to be careful not to stereotype even evangelicals, because I've had a great many evangelicals as close friends who I had a lot of respect for, and who I felt like were respectful of me as well.
Yes.
So anyway, I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about the election that you kind of were segueing to. And I think Juanita has some information to provide to listeners about the upcoming election on April 2nd.
Yeah. Well, first of all, your vote by mail has to be in the day of the election by 7 o'clock that day, which is April 2nd. So if you are still holding on to yours, you need to get it in the mail as quickly as possible. And I'm going to give out the supervisor of elections telephone number in case, you want a last minute vote by mail. Although honestly, myself, I think at this point, I
think they're closed for new vote by mail right now. So that, I don't think that's an issue. I think, but they can, if they're going through Bartow or something, or through, it's kind of toward Caveville over out of Winter Haven, they can drop their vote by mail ballot if they're afraid it won't get there in time at one of those locations.
Well, also, there's been some polling places changes. And if you are not in 519, 524, or 526, right, then you are going to be voting over at the administration building.
Yeah, the City Hall, actually.
Which is City Hall. It's 201 West Central Avenue. But if you are 519, 524, or 526, you'll be voting over at Lake Ashton at the clubhouse on 4141 Ashton Club Drive. So, make sure you go to the right place. You'll know what your precinct is because it'll be on your card. I had to go get my card to figure out what the heck. Here it is. And I saw, oh yeah, there it is. Now I know what I am. The other thing too is there's going to be another forum, and it'll be this Saturday on March 30th from 10 to 4 at the B Street
Center, yes.
Center over there in Lake Wales. And it's going to be an old-fashioned picnic, so there will be food there. But there also will be, your candidates will be there. and hopefully the incumbents as well, so that you can ask them questions, get to know them, and help you make an informed decision.
We don't have any information about whether or not all the candidates will be there, do we?
No.
Because we know that
I think that Danny Krieger has already said he won't be there.
Really?
He has another engagement.
Yeah, I heard that as well. I wasn't going to say it because I hold out hope that up until the last minute, people, these two incumbents will come to their senses and realize that by not showing up, they're really doing themselves a disservice.
Yes.
Someone won't answer the question.
Well, and it's not fair to the citizens either. I mean, the citizens deserve the opportunity to hear their candidates speak on various topics and be available to answer questions. If they don't show up, the citizen gets a raw deal.
Yes.
Well, we have 2 seats that are up right now. We have 5 seats. There's the mayoral seat that everyone in the city votes for, and then there's 4 districts. So the districts that are up are 2 and 4. 2 is the incumbent is Danny Williams, and he is in that race with Brandon Alvarado and Crystal Higbee. So there's 3 in that race. And then the other race is seat 4, and that's the incumbent Danny Krieger and Carol Gillespie. So
Okay.
anyway,
Well,
the new candidates, the person that wins, they'll be sworn in on May 7th. So they still got a month to make some trouble. If we want to do something different, this group still has a month to kind of make more trouble for us, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay. Since we're talking about upcoming events, I wonder if it would be good for us to segue into the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that's coming up on Tuesday evening, because they've got 2.
It's at 5:30 at City Hall. So it's Tuesday this coming March 26th, 5:30 City Hall.
And you don't have to sign a form in order to speak at Planning and Zoning Board. You just show up and speak, either under comments and petitions or under the agenda item that you're interested in, if it says it has a public hearing attached to it. And if I'm not mistaken, almost all of the agenda items this Tuesday do have public hearings. And there are two things. One is a new little restaurant. The other one is an auto repair shop, I think it is, which it may not be quite as crucial as the 2 main things on the agenda, which are the new revised wording of P&D or PDP, which is Plan Development Project, and the newly created TND, Traditional Neighborhood Development. The specified outlines for those 2 things are going to be discussed at the Planning and Zoning Board, and they're important.
I would like to interject here that going out, you can get the agendas for these meetings, and you can get them on the City of Lake Wales site. It's not completely easy. It took me a long time to figure this out, but there's if you can get into the city site, there's this thing at the bottom for some kind of disability or something. You have to click that so that you can see the whole site. And I've talked to them about trying to do away with that, and they won't, because it blocks a lot of the information. But going in there, get rid of that, and then you look for the agenda section. And there's a little search thing, and you can click on that, and it brings up every agenda for all the boards and everything. You go up there, you click on the thing where it turns off them all, and then you click just on what you're looking for, like the Planning and Zoning Board meeting.
And they're in alphabetical order. You just have to scroll down until you come to the one that you're looking for. And if it's in 2024, it'll be there.
Well, and the other cool thing is on the Planning and Zoning Board, the actual items themselves are hyperlinked. So if it's something you're interested in, and this is the same for city commission meetings as well. You know, if you go in there and you're interested in a particular item, or you just want to scroll through and figure out what's going on, you're able to click on those hyperlinks and see the actual underlying documents, which is really important to know.
Uh-huh.
So what I know that the PDP, Charlene, could you explain to people what a PDP is and how it why it's important and how it relates to like the zoning of a particular piece of property? Because Charlene was on how long were you on the P&Z board?
About 7 years, I think it was.
Right.
The PDP came into being under Margaret Swanson because it was felt that we needed something other than traditional standard subdivision. A traditional standard subdivision is built on a square, on a grid, and the lots are large, and there's a lot more lawn space, green space around each house because the lots are large. It allows for larger houses. But it was getting more and more expensive. So PDP, Plan Development Project, was designed so that there could be smaller lots, not as much mowing, and less upkeep, smaller lots, smaller houses if necessary. And the trade-off for that was that there had to be more variety and creativity in the design of the neighborhood. And it was supposed to be designed so it facilitated neighbors getting together. It had to have extra green space and recreational space and ways that created a pleasant neighborhood for people to live in and to raise children in. And that was the difference between the two. Now, if you read the ordinances, it's all very, very technical and detailed, but that's the general difference in those two.
So like a person could have a piece of property, let's say an acre, and you could put, say, 10 units on it, and there'd be all sort of equal size lots pretty much throughout it. Mm-hmm. Or you could have a neighborhood where you have 15 smaller lots, but they're more creatively designed in that you provide more green space because you're compacting those units into a smaller space.
Yes.
And so then, you know, I guess theoretically a homeowners association or something like that would care for the green space, and people would receive some kind of a charge on their, I don't know, there's a lot more involved with it, but that's generally a PDP. So now we've gone through, the whole community went through this very big planning process where a lot of us spent a lot of time and effort, by the way, on this Lake Wales Envisioned. And out of Lake Wales Envisioned process has come this thing called traditional neighborhood design. And what could you explain this other ordinance called T&D?
Well, the T&D basically means more walkable, bicyclable arrangements where lots are smaller and houses are smaller generally because the lots are smaller. It encourages the use of alleys so that people can park either on the side of their house or in the back of their house, so that they can have porches in the front of their house. And the porches are important to create a neighborhood feeling, so that when people walk down streets, they see their neighbors and they can say hello. And it's this neighborhood friendliness that I think is the key feature of the traditional neighborhood design.
Yeah, it's not broken up with a whole lot of driveways, right?
Yes. No garages in the front. You don't drive down the street and see nothing but garages. You see front porches with people sitting on them.
Right.
Well, and I think another major part of the T&D concept is tree cover and having space for trees. So you concentrate the development, which, interestingly, on February 22nd, the city sent out a notice that they were going to have a meeting with all 5 commissioners the next day, February 23rd, which was a Friday, at 9 a.m. at the new Lake Wales Family Recreation Center, which is the old YMCA up there on Burns Avenue. Interestingly, the meeting had no video coverage, and the audio that was provided after we asked for it, we had to ask for it, was pretty, you could hear a lot of activity going on. So sometimes it was hard to hear, but we did get the minutes. I've read the minutes, and a lot of that dealt with discussing this PDP and T&D ordinance, which I thought was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the difference between the public input that's allowed on one of them, but is not a part of the other.
Right. One of the things they're trying to do with the T&D is have it so specific that if a builder comes in and they want to go the T&D route, they do not have to present their plans and their rezoning issues, I guess rezoning, I don't know, to the planning and zoning boards. And it can be approved by what they're calling, it used to be our planning and zoning department, I think. Now it's called the growth management department. But Autumn Cacello and her staff will be in charge of just approving these things. And if you have a problem with what they've approved, the way that you have to deal with it is not going in front of the planning and zoning board and voicing your concerns, but it is to go to the Board of Appeals. And if that doesn't work for you, then you have to go before and you have to basically take them to court, which, as we know now, has become very difficult for Florida citizens because of legislation in Tallahassee, which says that if you lose your complaint, you will be responsible for your opponent, which would be the city's legal costs, which is putting a real kibosh on citizens being able to go to court.
Yeah. Something very important that you said there is the fact that there will be no public hearing. It will not go through the planning and zoning board. It will not have a public hearing. And when it goes to the city commission, it will not have a public hearing at that time either. That means there will be no public oversight of anything that's considered a TND, traditional neighborhood development. No longer will anybody be able to comment or in any way request information or express their opinion about something like this going into their neighborhood. It's I think it's a very, very dangerous thing, and I hope people will take note of it and will come down to the P&Z meeting on Tuesday at 5:30 and just stand up and say it's not right that there's no public oversight, no public hearings in this particular ordinance, and that must be changed. It takes a lot of power away from the planning and zoning board too, because now they will only be approving PDPs and maybe the occasional standard subdivision. Most people don't do those anymore, but it'll cut their job in half.
Well, and one reason that we're not seeing people go through the standard neighborhood is because with the PDP and the T&D, they're allowed to make all these waiver requests. Mm-hmm. And waiver requests are like, some of these things are long, and it's like, I'm not sure there's been a real way of weighing whether we're coming out ahead with all these waivers or not. They're also talking about, with these two ordinances, reduction of impact fees if people go this route. So interestingly, they're almost like using Lake Wales envisioned to justify increasing densities, cutting impact fees. And now I just want to go back again to Lake Alta project, which is really interesting. And, my husband and I have been looking at this, and like Lake Alta project, they're kind of touting that as being a PDP that's tending toward a T&D, a planned development project trending toward a traditional neighborhood project. And there's just so many goofy project problems with that project. If that project was called a TND, we wouldn't even get to see it.
Right.
Yeah, under the new ordinance, we would not get to comment on it at all. And the Planning and Zoning Board would not see it either.
Right. You know, like with that project, there's no room for sidewalks. There's no room for any trees. There's no room for barely for driveways.
One car can get in there per house.
I thought the guy said it was a double when that builder the other day.
But
When
when you look at this footage, you can't see how two. I mean, they'd have to park on the grass, wouldn't they? One car have to park on the grass?
Well, a standard driveway for one car, for two cars, is 20 foot by 20, I think it was 20 to 25 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of the houses are talking about a setback of 15 feet. So I'm not sure, even if you put a driveway up to the house, whether there's room for drive. They're talking about a 10-foot front yard, 5-foot side, side setback. So each house is going to be 10 foot apart. And then the back setback is 15 feet, which I think is barely enough for, a car to be able to get in there. And,
Well, plus the fact that it all depends on whether or not they give away a park. In order to accomplish any of this, they need to give away a public park, which is an incentive that I think is a step too far. Unnecessary. There could be
well, and these little houses, go ahead.
a nice little infill there. If the developer wanted to use the land that he actually owns and redesign it in some way to meet the criteria for a PDP. There's no reason that they should be giving away public land in order.
Well, with a 1.5 acre piece of property, it's really hard to visualize how this guy could reorganize it to make it more acceptable with this kind of a high density. And they're claiming that they're doing this under the Community Redevelopment Agency, claiming that this is a redevelopment project. And some of us are saying this is actually a classic, historic, traditional neighborhood design.
Yes.
That they're talking about coming in and mucking up by cramming this many units onto 1.5 acre piece of property and messing up there's already a lot of street parking up there. And if you have these houses without adequate parking, you're just creating a parking nightmare.
I'm sorry, but it would be a really bad a precedent to set, I think, for them to give away something that is a neighborhood park. There are other neighborhood parks in Lake Wales. Are they going to be the next to go because they want to infill somewhere? I mean, that's a real danger as far as
When one developer is allowed to get away with it, the others are then who knows? Who knows what will happen next? This is a good time, I think, to point out that the challengers to the incumbents in these two seats, Carol Gillespie and Brandon Alvarado, have both spoken out against giving parks away. If they were on the board to vote for this, they would not vote to give this park away. They would insist on something more reasonable being done in that project. So keep that in mind when you go to vote.
Well, I think we're getting close to our time, but we're trying to keep these to about 30 minutes. But we have so many things that have been going on in the city in the last couple of weeks. Do you want to just, Juanita, mention a couple of the other things that have been going on,
Oh my goodness, there's just so much.
How about the police? How about the police?
I was going to say that, but go ahead, Charlene, you take it.
No, okay.
No, that's fine.
Yes, the police chief was suspended, and a statement was made that he would be replaced. Now there was conflict in those statements alone, but City Manager Slayton said several times that he was doing it because of nepotism and appearance of nepotism, and because he had been spending too much time in the last couple of years dealing with police issues, and that the public was losing faith in the department, et cetera, et cetera. And then a week later, he reversed himself, and he didn't give a really good reason for it. And it was very disappointing, I think, to a lot of us, in particular the people in the Northwest neighborhood who have had special concerns about the police department during the last few years.
I have a little pet peeve, and I don't even know if it was on our agenda for today, but why is the state of the city being given at a place where you have to pay to go and hear it? I don't think that's quite right. I mean, shouldn't we have been
Is
able?
there a video made of that talk, I wonder?
I don't think there's a video. There wasn't one last year made. There wasn't a video made. Maybe there might be an audio, and I will request it. But that's just a little pet peeve. It seems like it didn't seem quite right to me. I mean,
That the state of the city is given by the Mayor Jack
Yeah.
Hilligoss, and it was done at the over at the Lake Wales Arts Center on Friday night. I was at at Bach Tower. They had the Balsam Range, which is a great bluegrass band.
well, $25 a ticket to hear the state of the city.
Well, we could check with the city website and see if they've loaded onto the website, but I doubt it, but it's worth checking.
Yeah.
Well, and we also have been sort of ongoing with this situation with the business incubator. I've done a lot of research on that, and I think some of the things that I and other people have said has sort of triggered some of the calls of liar and evil and wicked from the mayor because of that situation, and we probably will have to come back to that at some time. I wanted to close with Juanita and I. Juanita was a teacher for many years. And also, interestingly, she told me that she used to entertain at children's parties for years up in Long Island. That was sort of something new for me, Juanita. And just talk a little bit about what we kind of think of as our role. We're starting to kind of formulate what we're doing here and why.
Well, all of the different posts that have followed the Three Little Ladies videos, because I have posted them on many different sites. I get a lot of responses where people are saying, thank you for explaining this, or thank you for the information you're giving. I didn't know that. So I'm thinking that I didn't know very much when I came here. Thank goodness I became friends with Charlene through an organization that we both belong to, and she explained a lot of this. I didn't know PDP from a TND from a whatever, And so it's kind of hard to ask people to participate if there's this maze of alphabet soup and misunderstandings or no understanding of how city government actually works here. So I see our role as at least partially to explain these things to people who really want to know and really want to get involved. I think we'd be doing a really big service. So I'd like to see a little of our time set aside for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do the rest of you see our role?
Maybe something we should talk about in the near future is what ideas we might have for helping the city to communicate better this sort of thing with the people. What can they do to provide simple explanations for things like we're doing here on this little vidcast? There have to be ways, and I can think of a few, and I know Catherine's written about this, and Juanita probably has some ideas. Maybe we need to talk about this a bit more in the future.
I do have to say, though, from my entertainment background, because I did do over 2,000 shows on Long Island, if you make things entertaining to people, they are more likely to listen to it. I mean, you can go
Here.
Yeah.
You can go on
Food and drink.
for stuff, but information, but you're more likely to enjoy sitting here and listening to somebody like us who are really you.
And I want Juanita to know that we really appreciate what you're doing, and you, and because somehow my picture did not make it. They had a picture on the digital version of the article about Jack Hilligoss and the ledger of me in the digital version, but that didn't make it to the final cut. You and Charlene, but particularly Juanita, she was on the front page.
Yeah.
It's nice. Well, you did get a glamour shot from the ledger. Be real. Okay. But
Thanks, Catherine.
we support you and we love you. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people in town. So, it's kind of intimidating to be made the poster child of opposition to this very powerful mayor that we have.
Well, one thing that was a little really got me was that I have people saying, "Oh, I admire your courage," and I never really stopped to think about that. It took courage, and
Stick it on there.
But you know what? I do feel a little courageous, but you know what? It had to be done.
Yes.
It had to be done.
Yes. Well, y'all have a great day. Is anything that y'all want to, at the end of the city commission meetings, they always go, does anybody have anything to say? I feel pretty confident we've said a lot.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot.
And I have for sure been vocal enough today.
So I look forward to seeing you ladies next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Y'all have a great day. Just keep smiling while I turn off the video here. You said.